Hi, my name is Robert Hawking, and I'm the producer of The Creators. This episode of The Creators is dedicated to an amazing entrepreneur I met several years ago in London, where I had the pleasure of coaching him in advance of a social venture competition for Chivas Ventures. Daniel Dalet is a super smart, focused, and serious entrepreneur who's launched 2 successful ventures. I was really struck when we met because despite the fact he's got a ton of heart in the work he does, he's also a very astute and disciplined business person. That was interesting to me, to have a business that was really creating impact in the lives of people, whose raison d'etre was the betterment of the world around it, but being managed like any purely for-profit business. This is a really important thing to note when it comes to social ventures. They can't help if they aren't sustainable, and in Daniel, his ventures have a great steward. In our 2-part interview, Daniel describes being born in the Dominican Republic into a life of relative privilege, one that led to him studying at a private business school in the US and eventually a job in the private equity industry. While there, 2 life-changing, let's call them awakenings, occurred. The first, when living in a condo, Whole Foods on the ground floor, he noticed there wasn't a single product from his native Dominican Republic to be had. He thought, how's it possible that a country with great coffee and chocolate wouldn't at least have one product in a major grocery retailer like Whole Foods? The second awakening occurred when he realized he was bored with private equity and decided to make his life more interesting by launching a business that would bring great products from the DR to America. For 2 years, he researched and created a premium coconut-based beauty and wellness brand called SoloCoco. When, on the eve of a launch, he faced a moment that caused him to dedicate his business to the lives of his workers. This story touched me. Daniel explains that in scaling his team, he realized his 150-plus workforce was made up predominantly of single moms who struggled to find work elsewhere because of their circumstances, and this changed him and the direction of his company. Eventually, Daniel sold a majority stake in SoloCoco to a firm with the resources to help him scale his business, opening up an opportunity to launch a new venture called 12 Tree in the area of regenerative farming. From private equity to entrepreneurship and a focus on improving the lives of people and our planet, Daniel shows us how profit and social impact can coexist. I hope you enjoy the interview, and remember to hit like and subscribe for more stories like Daniel's. So when I had the pleasure of meeting you 4 or 5 years ago in Oxford, what really struck me, first of all, you had been a finalist in the Chivas Social Entrepreneurship Fund competition. This is a competition that involves 3,000 companies from around the world competing for the chance to win $1 million. And you were one of the 30 finalists that were flown into Oxford to spend a week to prepare to pitch. And I remember just there's a few things that really struck me about you. One was your your calmness and your grace, and also I was struck at that time by the fact that you were coming from a developing economy, but clearly your experience was greater. That I knew that you'd gone to the university in the United States. I knew that you worked in finance, and I was very, very struck by the fact that you had made a decision to return to your country and start a business that was going to benefit the community as a whole and not just be profit driven. So I really do appreciate coming back today to find out more about your story. And as I say, what we really want to do is explore, why you do what you do, where you come from, and where you're trying to go. So again, thank you very much. So this is an introduction of Daniel Dalet, who is the CEO of 12 Tree Organics, who's based in the Dominican Republic. So Dan, if you wouldn't mind, if you could start by just telling us about your upbringing, like tell us where you were born, how you grew up, and really how it led you to do what you're doing today.
I was born in the Dominican Republic. I am of a Spanish descent, but Dominican heart. So Dominican Republic is the largest Caribbean island, largest Caribbean nation. It's a developing country, as you mentioned. I come from an upper middle class family, so a position of privilege for the average citizen of the country. And I had the good fortune of studying abroad in a business school. So from a very young age, my interests were always more aligned with developing new things rather than melting into a larger organization. So when I was like 12 years old, I packed up all the toys that I didn't want, put them in a briefcase, and spent 3 days walking around the different neighborhoods selling these toys so that I could have some cash and buy cooler toys. And I think my parents, that was the first time my parents saw that there's something a little different about me. I guess a few kids have done this in the past, but my brothers certainly didn't. I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. And when it came time to go to college, I was decidedly focused on going to business school because I had as I said, this mentality where I wanted to create things. So, coming from a third world country going into a more developed society and becoming a part of a more developed society, I spent about 10 years in the States. It has given me some perspectives as to how developed businesses in more developed economic countries behave versus what's currently happening in the third world, and where the perspectives of opportunities lie in building businesses that can help to advance the mentality, because it's very ambitious to say that one business is going to change a country, but it's reasonable to say that successful business mentalities and businesses that have good success based on impact mentalities or transformation mentalities can change the general consensus of what's possible with business in the third world. And that's kind of been my driving force.
Now, as I know a little bit about your background, you ended up going to quite an elite private college in the United States to study business. But right after that, you got into the area of finance. So, it's interesting, the idea that, you would have grown up in as you say, quite a privileged background. And having been to the Dominican Republic, I know that you don't have to go too far off the beaten track to witness poverty in a pretty significant scale. So, having traveled from the environment that you grew up in to go to a private university, you spent a number of years in finance. So was it always in your mind that you wanted to do something in business that was going to have a positive social impact? Or if not, like, when did that realization dawn on you that you wanted to shift your focus into something that was, contributing to the greater good?
I think it was in my mind from day one, but my level of maturity probably wasn't ready to really understand what I wanted. So fresh out of college, I did some work in investment banking. Wasn't my cup of tea, and so I started a hedge fund when I was about, I guess, 25. I graduated college when I was 21, and spent the time in between working for investment banks, and started the hedge fund business, and quickly became disenamored with it. I mean, the point, there are some people who are attracted to money for money's sake and what money can do for you, and then there are people that are more attracted by purpose and purpose in their career. And for better or worse, I like to think better, I am one of the people that is more attracted to purpose and development when it comes to conceptualizing their own life's work. So at a point, it became the point of disillusionment with making a lot of money while moving numbers around the screen and having being involved primarily in activities that are zero-sum gains, as such as hedge funds and finance and trading and things like these, to saying, no, this is not what I want in my life, and I'm going to, without certainty of the future, stop what I'm doing and search for something that I am more enamored with or that I am passionate about.
And so what was that moment? Like, what, You describe having spent 10 years in the United States. You're working in the finance era, field, or the money field. What was the thing, the final straw, or the final moment that caused you to say, "Okay, I'm cutting connections here, and I'm going back to do something"? Was there a thing?
There was a moment. It came during the collapse of the credit-backed mortgages, the default swaps. I think that started in 2008 and culminated in 2009. We had put in a ridiculous amount of work, and I like to see. I'm one of the things that I have understand about myself now is that I like to see the point where we start to work, and as time progresses, I like to see kind of the unbeaten path become more groomed. Okay, so the development, you said before and after, and this external systematic problem erased most of the work that we had done for the past 5 or 6 years. And so I looked back onto what we had done, and in my mind, it was, there's got to be some way that I can have a better impact than this, and still be economically successful. And so there wasn't that big aha moment, but it was more of atrophy. So you start to get that feeling in your gut where I don't want to do this forever. And I guess it must have taken me the better part of 2009 to decide that I was going to pick up and leave the States and come back to my country.
Do you know what's interesting? Obviously, you are what I would think of as kind of a new generation of entrepreneur, a new generation that basically doesn't see the separation of profitability and sustainability, or profitability and social impact as being separate. You're not alone, but you are, in my mind, you are at the early stages of this movement. And so I'm really curious about that. So this idea, was there anxiety on your part? You'd already gone, you were operating at a very high level. Was there anxiety on your part that the idea of becoming an entrepreneur who wanted a profit, to maintain a profit motive, but also do good? Was there concern that it was possible?
Yeah, I think that there are very few humans that are not uncomfortable with uncertainty. I mean, uncertainty is a challenging thing. Everybody wants to know where the paycheck's going to come from next week, or whether I'm putting all of my effort into these things, and they're going to be profitable, or it depends on how you define profitability, which is what I think you're asking me. For me, I was worried that time would run out on me before my resources would run out, and I had decided what to do. And so what happened to me unequivocally is that very, very quickly after I came back to the Dominican Republic, it became obvious to me that I wanted to make something from what springs naturally from the ground here. So I'm going to tell you a short story. So I lived between Boston and New York, but when I lived in Boston, I had Whole Foods in the lobby of the building that I lived in. And so Whole Foods is a beautiful place, because you walk in there, in my opinion, and you see products from all over the world. They're usually the best products. I mean, there's few things that you can't find at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Price not being an issue. But there wasn't one thing from the Dominican Republic. So I'd be walking around and saying, like, there's got to be at least a piece of chocolate or something that I can buy from my country and say, wow, we made it this far. And there wasn't. And so that also rang in my mind at one point, and became a recurring theme as to what do we actually produce here in the Dominican Republic. We produce tourism, we've got great baseball players, we've got some nice tobacco, some nice rum, but this is a huge country to produce only a short amount of exportable goods that are of national identity, okay? And so I knew that's something that I wanted to do. And so that drove me to launch SoloCoco in a way. Yeah.
So tell us about that. So what was the business that you started, and what were its kind of core philosophies?
So it's, as I was kind of leading towards a core philosophy as being something of very high quality, something of Whole Foods grade, being made from Dominican nature or Dominican agriculture. And I landed on coconut oil, which we eventually branded as SoloCoco, because there was an abundance of coconut and no really branded Dominican coconut product being exported from the country. And so what happened was I came in with this mentality where, I'm a big fan of quality. And so we're going to make the highest quality Dominican coconut oil possible. And I put about a year and a half or two of effort into this. We designed the manufacturing process. I got mentored by what I think is the most knowledgeable virgin coconut oil man on the planet, who's still alive, but has been at this for 40 years. And we put together just an amazing production process, an amazing final product, and we were ready to launch. And then everything changed for me. Everything changed for my internalization of how the product should be commercialized. And so, as I said, I was going to go with the quality flag. We've got the best, and we make it in the Dominican Republic. But when we opened the factory and started interviewing potential employees, so to give you a little bit of background, the coconut oil was made by a very manual process, a very small batch. It required a lot of manipulation and human interaction in order to really weed out the bad quality versus the good quality, give you a kind of a bare bones description. So we had to hire a lot of human resources. We needed a lot of workers. And the first day we started interviewing, my chip kind of changed. How are we going to sell this? Because we started interviewing these women showed up. These women showed up to work to be considered for the position. And I conducted these interviews myself. I must have conducted 200, 300 of them. And they all had very similar stories. And it was kind of heart-wrenching for me because, as I said, I identify with the nation, so, and all of its benefits and troubles. And the stories of these women were shocking to me, something that I wasn't aware of. They were, on average, below 25 years of age, had not made it out of high school because at approximate age of 15, had a first pregnancy and had continued to have children, sometimes in as much as 6 or 7, about an average of 3 or 4 years from that on, with no love. So we heard simple stories of children sleeping on the floor, children being kept out of school because their mothers couldn't afford school uniforms, simple infections turning into pneumonias and things like this, where it kind of repeats this vicious cycle of where these people end up in vulnerability, and they have inadvertently put themselves in a position where they were unhireable, because nobody in their right mind, thinking on the conventional mentality, is going to hire single mothers that have 4 kids and all these problems, no training, no experience, no academic background, nothing like that. Because what's in their mind, what's a manager's thought process is, this person's going to miss work. I'm going to misuse resources in training this person, basically. And because at that point we were developing the brand, what clicked on me was, this product is not about the quality. Quality's got to be there, and that's all. I've already spent a year and a half on this. The product has to be about telling the story of impact for these women. And so we made a decision to ignore every other applicant and hire only those that were in this vulnerable condition, these single moms. And the idea was we would get the product certified fair trade so that the consumer choice to buy our product because of the story or along the story would have tremendous impact on the lives of these women. So the products would generate a social premium that then the women themselves decide how to allocate those resources to better their lives. So it's either in many cases, it was education, buying school uniforms, but in other points, it was medicines. The SoloCoco, the proceeds from SoloCoco built housing for some of these women. And so that was the biggest surprise to me. It was probably one of the better decisions I've made in my life.
So are you saying, if I understand right, that it was SoloCoco's original intention wasn't to be a business that was fundamentally about serving the community of workers, that actually literally happened to you when you started interviewing employees?
That's exactly right. It wasn't, I didn't build the company to say I'm going to hire single moms. I knew I wanted to impact the environment. So we got certified organic so that we could only manage the coconuts without applying pesticides or glyphosate or anything like that. But when it turned into a social impact story when I connected with the workforce.
I hope you enjoyed the first part of this interview. Please click on part 2 to hear the rest of Daniel's amazing story where he describes his social impact and the new direction he's taking with his regenerative farming venture.